This is in Portland. Anyway, so they're in the middle of this conversation, and Heather, who is she's a biologist, and she starts going over the biology of the differences between males and females that are just undeniable. And these kids get up and they start yelling that this is bullshit and fuck you and power to the people, all this crazy shit. And then they tip over the sound system, and they're the most hilarious, classical, liberal, progressive lefties. Green hair. The guy has like this puffy afro, and he's like, you know, we don't tolerate Nazis, man. Like, these are fucking Nazis. These are biologists, you piece of shit.
You know, that stuff is the kind of stuff that I think turns people off to the left.
Yes.
And almost provides a gateway to the right, where all of a sudden people can buy into an even broader right-wing ideology. Because if you look at the left, and that's your perception of the left, is it's the people with the pink hair or the blue hair, and they're just going around, and their whole point is to deplatform people or censor people or scream about Ben Shapiro or whatever the case is. Like, my whole thing is, if you're on the left, and I think most lefties do this, to be fair, put the identity politics aside, okay, and let's talk about the things that we actually already have a majority of the American people with us on. So, you know, like a classic left-wing idea. Let's have a living wage. The minimum wage is not a living wage right now. You could work full-time and not make enough money to survive. Well, if you're on the left and you go out there and you talk about, we need to fight to try to get a living wage and make our government work for us, well, then you get everybody to agree with you. Even most Republicans agree with you. And you can go down the list, whether it's legalizing marijuana, 60% of the American people are now with us. Ending the wars. There was a poll that came out in 2013, so it's old, admittedly, but only 17% of the American people still wanted to be in the war in Afghanistan. And we're still there today. I'd imagine, if anything, that number probably dropped even further, and everybody's like, what are we doing in Afghanistan?
Right. But isn't the problem with polls is when you ask people about it, you're not asking them if they're informed. You're just asking them.
You're just asking their opinion on it, sure.
Well, what I was saying is about the left versus the right. Is that the real problem is anybody can be on either. So you're going to get these people that are going to disrupt this Heather Heying, you know, lecture on biology from an informed scientific perspective, and like, fuck this, man, this is patriarchy. You're going to get that. But you're also going to get people like yourself. You're also going to get people that are aware of the issues and educated and are debating this in a very public way and trying to figure out what's the best possible solution to these things. The problem is, anytime you have a group, whether it's pick the group, gun owners, vegans, whatever, anybody can fucking join, man. And as soon as anybody can join, you can't look at like the worst case scenarios, the green haired dork that kicks over the microphone because they don't like the idea that Heather is speaking logically about biology. Like, you know, you have to look at like the whole thing. And we don't like to do that. We like to point at the green-haired dork and say, hey, liberals, there's your left.
Exactly. And, you know, the breakdown to me is, when you look at somebody like that, they're in the category of what I would call authoritarian left, because they want to control other people's actions. They want to shut down that speech and say, your ideas are so dangerous, I don't even want to hear it. There's a whole other contingent of the left, which, again, I would argue is probably the majority of the left, which is the libertarian left, which is people like me and many others who say, listen, live and let live on social issues. I'm never, even though I don't agree with Steven Crowder or Ben Shapiro on anything, I'm never gonna, you know, try to protest to get them to not speak their mind at a school.
It's foolish.
It is, and it makes it look like you don't have an argument when you say, I can't let that guy talk. And then they get to go around and say, I'm so persecuted because I'm right. You know? Meanwhile, I say, okay, you want to have somebody like that go speak at college? Sure, fine, let him speak.
Well, the power is out at my job, and so I'm going to be working with available light today. Hopefully it'll be enough. What I wanted to talk about today was, you know, in response to this clip that I played from the Joe Rogan show with Kyle Kulinski of Secular Talk. Kyle Kulinski is somebody who kind of comes from that T.J. Kirk era of new atheist, liberal male Democrats, sort of Bill Maher, Sam Harris atheist. Kulinski was actually pals with Sargon until recently, and supposedly he's very pro-left, very pro-Bernie Sanders, but he's against identity politics, and he was, you know, that was the part of Kyrgyzstan that people sort of didn't talk about that much was, you know, people look at Kyrgyzstan and they think of it as like a Trump MAGA thing, but Kyrgyzstan was mostly disaffected Bernie-crats. Myself having voted for Bernie Sanders in the primary, and then myself also having voted for Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election, in the main election, because I didn't have any other choices. You know, would I have liked for Bernie Sanders and his platform to win? Yes. Do I think that Hillary Clinton was a little bit more clear on her positions on social issues and being progressive on social issues and being progressive on women's issues? Sure. Bernie Sanders actually has a son who is out here trying to run for office and bitching about identity politics and how much identity politics fucked his dad out of the nomination. 2016 was a fracturing point, and I think that the lesson we can take away from this is that the revolution cannot be incomplete. We need to have justice, economic justice for, you know, the social and economic issues. They're not divorced from one another. And if you try to split them, you won't really be able to form a proper left coalition. So, for example, no amount of economic progressivism, no amount of social welfare programs or left-wing trade policy or labor unions are going to address the problem of police officers who are union employees, who usually have collective bargaining. They already have the left's dream of being a worker with collective bargaining and benefits. We're not going to be able to fix the problem of mostly white cops killing black civilians, or killing black suspects before they even get in the fucking squad car. Because we do, listen, you know, I always emphasize that Black Lives Matter is about wrongful shootings, but also yeah, they're all wrongful shootings. My point is that BLM is not just about civilians being accosted, but also people who are being charged, not making it into custody alive. You know, so you cannot fix the killing of black men by white cops with any sort of Bernie Sanders progressive economic policy. Now, there are times where these two things intersect. For example, if you want to help women, you cannot just pay them lip service like the Hillary Clinton campaign did while she's planning all these trade deals and planning to oppose the minimum wage increase, because the majority of people making minimum wage in this country are women. And if you raise the minimum wage, one of the main byproducts of that is that you help women. You help a lot of women live a healthier and more stable existence. You know, when you pass universal health care, you help women. But then again, you need to address social issues, because the women who have done well economically and have made it into the Hollywood system and are multimillionaires are being predated. They're being sexually harassed and assaulted by rich, supposedly liberal, because, you know, fucking Harvey Weinstein was a liberal Democrat, according to, you know, the people that he hung out with and the people that he donated money to. So Harvey Weinstein's problem is a social problem, predominantly applying to women. The Me Too movement is a social thing. You can get women as much money and you can get them representation economically in the Hollywood studio system, and that won't stop men in the system from fostering a culture of sexual harassment and degradation on these same women who have had their economic problems solved. So I think when these mostly older white guys like Joe Rogan, who want to go back to, you know, 1960s, 1950s old left, one big union, sure. But you know, a lot of why these, to me, what it seems like is a lot of these people try to divorce themselves from identity politics because they don't care. Joe Rogan is a multi-millionaire, and he does not care about women's social issues because he's not a woman. He does not care about, and this is like a really conservative thing of like, I don't care about gay rights. Excuse me, sir, your son is gay. I now care about gay rights. So Joe Rogan will care about social issues when his daughter is the victim of harassment in the workplace. Kyle Kalinske will care about, social issues like that would affect a white man's family. You know what I mean? His wife or his daughter. It's so weird with these conservative, right-leaning dudes and trying to get them to sort of have any kind of empathy. And then, look, sometimes even when it happens in their own family, a lot of Republicans just kind of disown the family member and continue with their philosophy, their ideology. So, we can leave people like T.J. Kirk, Joe Rogan, Dave Rubin, all the anti-IdPoL white men that think they're going to be expanding the coalition by telling women to go fuck themselves and telling black people to go fuck themselves and telling and not just fuck themselves, but it's the idea of like, yeah, stay in the coalition but shut up about A, B, and C. Leave Lawrence Krauss alone. Don't bother Richard Dawkins about being a misogynist because he's the hero of atheism, and isn't it so great that he's defending you from a creationist? I don't know. It's know your place. Shut your mouth and know your place. And I don't think, I think that that's sort of the big Achilles heel of letting white men lead the progressive movement, is that white liberal progressive men don't give a fuck about issues that don't affect them in their everyday life. They're like Gandhi. Gandhi is sort of aggrandized in the West, but Gandhi didn't give a fuck about other people's interests. He wanted progress for Indian men. He wanted equality specifically for Indian businessmen. He didn't give a fuck about women's rights. He didn't give a fuck about other progressive issues. That's kind of the most important thing to me is, if you say you're a progressive, you gotta go all the way. You cannot be Lena Dunham and not give a fuck about economic issues while you're like having a gross orgy with Hillary Clinton and those two girls from Broad City. You live in your Upper West Side apartment and you close out the rest of the world because you wear a "This is what feminism looks like" t-shirt. That's incomplete. You cannot be Bernie Sanders' son walking around talking about let's get universal health care, and then standing around while your campaign manager is this didn't necessarily happen. I'm saying spitting on women's issues, because we're not even just talking about feminism. I want to talk about it in a broad sense. I'm going to say women's issues. Women's issues apply to women whether they're feminists or not. Unless non-feminist women are super cool with being paid less, or their boss coming up and grabbing their butt cheeks, which I doubt they are. I doubt that Christina Hoff Sommers, as much as she talks, tells feminists to shut up, I guarantee you that if Richard Dawkins walked in and put his finger in her butthole, you would suddenly, this is like the Fox News girls. The Fox News women who went through the sexual harassment stuff were anti-feminist until Roger Ailes happened to them, and then now we need to talk about sexual harassment in the workplace. Now we need to talk about, giving settlements to women who have been fired because they didn't comply with sexual harassment. When they were in a different situation where they weren't the victim, they were complaining about other women pushing for reforms in this area. So I know the Christina Hoff Sommers thing is a gross metaphor. My point is that someone doing something, incredibly grotesque and humiliating to her would transform her opinions. Because what you have here with this very sort of narrow liberalism is, I want progress for myself. I'm a working class white man. I want working class white people to do better economically, and fuck all the rest of those identity issues. They'll be happy with whatever trickles down from the progress I would make as a white guy. Whatever's left over, black people, women, and Hispanics can all fight over. It's really a crock of shit. So today's lesson is to be a complete rebel all the way. No one is free until everyone is free. You gotta be for trans people, you gotta be for gay people, you gotta be for poor people, you gotta be for women, you gotta be all the way or nothing at all.